So nanoparticles to be densified into macro scale structures. In the case of silicon nitride, we were making and aluminum nitride, we were making relatively large components. We saw the examples with alumina to make microchannel structures and some challenges associated with that. We had gone ahead and tried to make these kinds of micro well structures. It's a plate about 3 centimeters by 1 centimeter, and in it there are about 2 million of these wells that are roughly about 4 microns in diameter and 4 microns in depth that are created. Right? We wanted to use barium titanate, and we used a good fraction of barium titanate nanoparticles. Okay, so we did the micro nano combination. So smaller particle size can give finer grain size. Finer grain size can give better dielectric strengths. Oh, sorry, not dielectric strengths, but dielectric constants. And if you have a higher surface area in a capacitor, you will store more charge. So by going to the high energy, high surface area features, this could be a way to be able to increase energy storage. Barium titanate, what are its interesting properties? Dielectric constant is extremely high. It can be as much as it can be several thousand. And so in contrast, you'll have polymers that are about 3 to 4 orders of magnitude lower. Okay, so that is the advantage of going to it has a lower dielectric strength. Polymers have very high dielectric strengths, but this allows you to get to some features like that. These 3 micron features are about 1 order of magnitude at least smaller than what has been published up to this point in the literature, and this came out that was published last year. Okay, so you want to create small structures on ceramics or metals. The big challenge being flow is hard into small features, and so you can get a lot of powder binder separation. Right? We saw some examples of that when you're looking at microchannel structures. And so we said, okay, fine, let's just mold the material, and then we'll take a laser beam and begin to cut channels. Or we can alternatively just use a spindle, okay, so a cutting tool which is only about 10 or 20 microns in diameter, and begin to cut features out of there. Cutting in that stage in a powder polymer combination means you're only cutting a plastic, and so the cutting forces are low. When it's fully sintered, the ceramic is extremely hard. In fact, you make cutting tools out of ceramics. They're that hard. So we thought we would be able to try to do the machining of the micro features after molding and then sinter that and see what happens. And so some work again done with Nathan and Burak, who's in Carnegie Mellon. First we used laser beams, and these are about, resolution is not very great, but these are about 50 microns in spacing over here. These lines that are drawn by the laser, and these lines that are drawn are about 10 microns. So you use a laser beam to cut grooves in the green state, and then you sinter the material and it remains. So a way to be able to continue to increase the surface area, put micro features. We were able to do some machining of these kinds of parts as well. They are about 50 micron wide, they are about 150 microns high, and they are about also approximately close to a centimeter long. So very high aspect ratio channels that are seen both in this region, and it's seen over here. Laser and micromilling, we try to see how the homogeneity issues that we had problems with molding, whether they can be overcome by doing this kind of pre-processing and then sintering. We looked at different types of injection molding, so melt stage. Then we looked at machining, so solid state. Finally, what we looked at in terms of ceramic particles as a final example was we took pure nanoscale silicon carbide, about 30 to 50 nanometers in particle size, plasma pressure compaction. We saw a variation called spark plasma sintering. You apply pressure and you heat the die cavity which contains the powder particles electrically, right? DC pulse DC current. You have joule heating, you have very high heating rate, and so potentially you could control the densification, the grain size. Is this solid state sintering or liquid phase sintering? Yes, you can see the contrast, right? And so we use some aluminum nitride and yttria to be able to help sinter these particles. And the grain size is about 1 micron roughly. We started about 15. So you have quite a bit of grain growth under those conditions also. Because we only use heating rates up to about 100 K per minute, you can go up to close to 10 times that amount. And hopefully, what we thought was smaller grain size will increase hardness. It could be used for armor. Currently, silicon carbide has a density of about 3.3. Okay, so it's lightweight, and so you can make thinner armors than you can make out of metal. So for the case of steel, it would be twice that density. People are making such structures out of aluminum oxide as well, but aluminum oxide has a density of 4.4. So silicon carbide is still lower density than that. We also thought maybe we can make some kinds of packages because the resistance can be quite high, electrical resistance can be high because the grain size can be small. So we were looking at how the density changes as a function of time and temperature in those studies. And this was work done by one of my PhD students, Manish Botara, who's now back in India after his PhD, and he's running a company with about 500 employees. So he built his own business afterwards. But the idea was, how can you control this grain size, and how does that change with different pressure, time, and temperature combinations? This is hardness mapped as a function of sintering temperature. One thing you had seen in the case of aluminum nitride was in using nanoparticles, you could sinter at lower temperatures. This was the sintering temperature for this particular material, about 1600 C. Most of the traditional technologies and with micron sized particles sinter at least 200 degrees higher, sometimes 400 degrees centigrade higher, to get this equivalently same hardness and density. So by going with nanoparticles, you reduce sintering temperatures. By applying pressure and having high heating rates, you can control the grain size, and both of those tend to help. This came in MedTrans a couple of years ago, and then there was another one in Science of Sintering last year. So we looked at different examples of powders. I'll quickly show a few examples related to patterns and pores. Okay. So in terms of pores, what we looked at was anodization, and we used aluminum. The difference was, instead of using foils, we sputter deposited aluminum onto a silicon wafer, and then we did the anodization. Most of the work that is done in the literature is with aluminum foils and other metal foils. We wanted to see how a evaporated or sputter deposited film would anodize relative to other regions. These porous structures are very useful for incorporating into sensors, as I'll show, chemical sensors and biosensors, because of these porous, of these cylindrical walls, say like a controlled cross-section diameter, and you can control the depth also. You can do that by adjusting voltage, time, temperature, concentration of the electrolyte, chemistry of the electrolyte, things like that. Right? So how wide a pore and how deep a pore you make can be controlled. Since the sensors that we were making were to be built and integrated with a chip, a silicon chip which has electrical electrode arrays on it, it would be useful to grow the aluminum directly on the chip over the gold microelectrodes, and then do the anodization, so you have one integrated structure. And so looking at the combination now, because sputtered films are going to have smaller grain sizes compared to foils, so there are going to be more grain boundaries. So anodization, so the oxidation is going to be a lot higher when you have more grain boundaries. And so that was something that we tried to address. Negar was a student who finished her PhD last year working on these types of areas. One type of use that we tried to do was, okay, you can make these pores of different diameters and depths. Can you use it as a mold to mold nanorods? Okay, so we use this polymer called polyurea silazane. See, it has three different monomers on it. Okay, so it has silicon, nitrogen, and carbon. Okay, and some of the nitrogen can go away, and so you end up having silicon carbide once you burn the polymer. This is a low molecular weight material initially, so you fill the pores in vacuum and then you cure it with UV radiation, right? And then you heat up the material. All the organic regions will burn out, and then largely you will be left with silicon carbide or silicon nitrogen and carbon. So silicon nitride, silicon carbonitride could be the two combinations. So in playing around with the UV, the thermal treatment, the viscosity of the polymer and so on, we could make roughly about, in 200 nanometer pore radius for the pores, we could make about, after the pyrolysis, about 150 to 180 nanometers wide rods, but they were about 10 to 20 microns in length. So the depth of the pores was about close to 20 microns. The diameter of the pores was about 200. So they work as molds, right? And you can make these kinds of mats. Interesting thing is, if you don't control the heating, temperature and the whole rate, or the UV curing correctly, this polymer, it just melts first inside the pores and ends up forming these spheres, which are roughly about the same, diameter of about 150 nanometers or something like that. And then it pyrolyzes and forms silicon carbide. So they are like nano peas in a pod. Right? So you can have morphology transitions from rods to spheres, depending upon changing the time and temperature combination. Okay. So if you wanted to make nanoparticles, you could do it that way. But if you wanted to have rods, you could do it this way. So this was a way to make silicon carbide, but as nanorod arrays. And in doing that, then of course, silicon carbide has some interesting properties in terms of thermal conductivity. It has interesting properties in terms of electronic band gap width. And so we have not yet been able to control the process to control the crystallinity of this material. But that is some opportunity over there, because if you can make it highly crystalline and ordered, then you could use it for solar energy conversion, for instance.